While observing the housekeeper, the millionaire was shocked to see the birthmark on her arm, the same one her daughter had when she disappeared many years ago. Danielle, a young woman marked by abandonment, arrived at Hannah Graham's mansion with a heart full of hope and anxiety. Raised in an orphanage, her only connection to her past was a peculiar star-shaped birthmark on her right arm. The house was imposing, and the task of cleaning it seemed monumental. But Danielle was determined to prove her worth. In the first days, Danielle faced the distrust and stern gaze of Matthew, the butler. He watched her every move, ready to point out any mistake. "I hope you understand that we demand perfection here," he said, his voice loaded with authority. Danielle in turn responded with a nod, feeling the weight of expectation on her shoulders. In this hostile environment, Danielle found an unexpected ally in Sarah, a co-worker. Sarah was warm and welcoming, offering a friendly smile when it was most needed. "Don't worry, everyone faces Matthew's toughness at the beginning," Sarah said, trying to ease the tension Danielle felt. They quickly formed a friendship, with Sarah showing her the shortcuts and giving tips on how to handle the demanding butler. One evening, exhausted after a long day's work, Danielle and Sarah sat in the kitchen, sharing confidences. "I always wonder who my parents are," Danielle confessed, looking at the mark on her arm. Sarah observed her with sympathy. "Maybe one day you'll find out. Strange things happen in this world." Sarah's friendship became a crucial support for Danielle, helping her face the daily challenges. However, Matthew remained relentless. "You need to do a better job," he scolded Danielle after a morning inspection. She felt the words like a blow but maintained her composure, determined not to let the criticism shake her confidence. Despite the hardships, Danielle found small moments of peace. At the end of the workday, she took refuge in a corner of the mansion's garden, a place where she could breathe and remind herself of her promise to build a better future. It was there that Sarah found her one afternoon, sitting in silence. "Don't let him bring you down," Sarah said firmly. "You are stronger than you think." These words resonated deeply with Danielle, renewing her determination. She knew the road would be long and arduous, but she was willing to face each challenge. That night, lying in her bed in the small servant's room, she promised herself that she would prove her worth and find answers to the questions that haunted her. Thus, the first days at Hannah Graham's mansion passed as a constant test of strength and resilience for Danielle. Between Matthew's severity and Sarah's friendship, she began to carve her path, unaware that her past and future were about to collide unexpectedly. Danielle worked tirelessly, cleaning every corner of the immense mansion of Hannah Graham. Matthew, the stern butler, watched everything closely, always finding something to criticize. "You missed a spot here," he said, pointing to a corner of an already clean mirror. Danielle took a deep breath, striving to maintain her calm and determination. In the following days, the tension between them only increased. Matthew seemed determined to make Danielle's life a living hell, his cold voice echoing through the corridors. "This is not up to Mrs. Graham's standards," he said, crossing his arms and watching her with a disapproving gaze. Despite the constant criticism, Danielle remained firm. "I won't give up," she murmured to herself as she scrubbed the kitchen floor. Each task was a silent battle, a test of her determination to prove her worth. Sarah, her co-worker and only friend in the mansion, was always there to offer words of encouragement. "He's like this with everyone at the start," Sarah said, offering a comforting smile. But if you keep doing your best, he'll eventually see. Danielle was grateful for Sarah's friendship, which included sharing stories of her own work struggles. "I went through this too," Sarah told her one afternoon as they took a quick coffee break in the kitchen. "But with time, you'll see that you can overcome anything." And so, between mops and dust, Danielle continued her journey. Each criticism from Matthew was a reminder of the tough path ahead, but also an opportunity to prove that, regardless of the challenges, she was capable of overcoming any obstacle. Sarah, witnessing Danielle's tireless effort, felt a deep admiration. "You are stronger than you think," she said, gently touching Danielle's shoulder. "Don't let anyone make you think otherwise." Matthew's presence was a constant shadow, but with Sarah's support, Danielle found the strength to continue. Her determination shone through every move, in every task performed with care and dedication. Finally, Danielle looked Matthew in the eyes, calmly responding, "I am here to do my job, and I will do it well." Matthew didn't respond, but something in his gaze seemed to have changed, albeit slightly. The confrontation between Danielle and Matthew was not just about work. It was a battle of wills, a test of endurance. And even with all the difficulties, Danielle felt that she was beginning to win, one small step at a time. Danielle was focused on cleaning the grand hall when she heard firm footsteps approaching. She looked up and saw Hannah Graham, the mansion's owner, enter with an imposing presence. Hannah was returning from a long business trip and had not met Danielle before. Her piercing blue eyes swept the room until they landed on the young housekeeper. Aware of the importance of making a good impression, Danielle tried to appear calm and professional. She straightened up and continued her work, feeling her employer's gaze on her. Hannah, intrigued by the new employee, slowly approached. Her eyes were drawn to something about Danielle, as if she already knew the girl. Suddenly, Hannah stopped. She felt a tightness in her heart, but didn't show it. "You're new here, aren't you?" asked Hannah, trying to keep her voice neutral. "Yes, ma'am. I started not long ago," Danielle replied, trying to hide her nervousness. Hannah watched how dedicatedly Danielle carried out her tasks, impressed by the young woman's work ethic. "What's your name?" continued Hannah, wanting to know more about the new employee. Danielle paused her work and replied, "Danielle, ma'am, Danielle Green." Hannah nodded, trying to process the information while hiding her internal turmoil. "Are you adjusting well to the job?" Danielle smiled slightly, despite the initial difficulties with Matthew, the butler. "Yes, ma'am, it's going fine. Mrs. Sarah has been helping me a lot." Hannah saw the sincerity in Danielle's eyes. There was something about the young woman that deeply touched her, something beyond the birthmark. Deciding to observe more closely, Hannah began to frequent the spaces where Danielle worked, always keeping an eye on the young housekeeper's dedication. Something about her moved Hannah. One afternoon, while Danielle was polishing silver in the dining room, Hannah entered quietly. "Danielle, I need to talk to you about your work. You've been doing an excellent job," said Hannah straightforwardly. Surprised by the compliment, Danielle looked up and replied, "Thank you, ma'am. I really enjoy working here." Hannah noticed the humility and honesty in Danielle's response. "Keep it up. Your efforts don't go unnoticed." Danielle felt a mix of relief and gratitude. Knowing that her work was being recognized, especially by Hannah, gave her the strength to continue facing challenges. As Hannah left the room, she couldn't help but feel that Danielle's presence stirred something within her. though she couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. Hannah decided to investigate more about Danielle, without letting the young woman perceive her interest beyond the professional. Hannah, observing Danielle as she meticulously cleaned the living room, couldn't help but notice the star-shaped birthmark on the girl's arm. Her eyes fixed on that detail, and a wave of painful memories began to flood her mind. She remembered the last time she saw her daughter, still a child before her tragic disappearance. The mark was identical. Throughout the day, Hannah tried to focus on her tasks, but the image of the mark wouldn't leave her mind. In a moment of weakness, she allowed herself to remember the dark days that followed her daughter's disappearance, the unbearable pain, and the emptiness that never left her. Hannah decided she needed to learn more about Danielle. With renewed determination, she approached the young woman, who, surprised by her employer's unexpected presence, immediately stopped what she was doing. "Danielle," began Hannah, her voice trembling slightly, "I noticed the mark on your arm. Could you tell me more about your background, about where you grew up?" Danielle, though hesitant, saw something in Hannah's eyes that encouraged her to speak. "I was raised in an orphanage, Mrs. Graham. I never knew my parents. The only thing I was always told is that I had this mark since I arrived there." Hannah felt her heart tighten. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. She knew she needed to delve deeper into Danielle's past, even if it meant revisiting her own pains. With a resolute look, Hannah moved closer to Danielle. "I will help you find out more about your origins," said Hannah, trying to keep her voice steady. "But I need you to trust me and let me investigate." Danielle, surprised by the unexpected offer, nodded slowly. "Of course, Mrs. Graham, I trust you." With this new alliance formed, Hannah began scouring old records, trying to find any clue that connected Danielle to her past. She spent hours flipping through papers, immersed in documents, desperately seeking a connection. Meanwhile, Danielle continued her work at the mansion, but with mixed feelings of hope and fear. The possibility of finally discovering her origins filled her with anticipation, but also terrified her. Hannah, for her part, could not shake the image of her lost daughter from her mind. Each new discovery about Danielle seemed to bring a bit more hope, but also increased the pain of a loss she never truly overcame. At the end of the day, Hannah felt she was closer to the truth. She knew the answers were within reach, and her determination to uncover the truth about Danielle and her connection to her lost daughter only grew. The path would be long and painful, but Hannah was ready to face any challenge, determined not to let this opportunity slip away. Hannah was determined to uncover the truth about Danielle. She decided to hire a private detective to investigate old records and gather crucial information. "I need to know who she is," Hannah said to herself firmly. The detective began searching the records of the orphanage where Danielle grew up. Each visit revealed new details, but the key piece of the puzzle was still missing. During one of these visits, Hannah met a retired caregiver who remembered Danielle. She was always a quiet child, but her eyes told stories, the caregiver said, looking at Hannah empathetically. Meanwhile, Danielle began to open up to Sarah about her experience in the orphanage. "There was a day when everything changed," said Danielle, her eyes brimming with tears. She recounted a traumatic event that marked her childhood. Sarah, holding her hand, encouraged her to continue. "You are stronger than you think," said Sarah in a gentle voice. As Hannah became more involved in the investigation, she found a crucial clue. An adoption record that seemed to have been abruptly interrupted. It could be her, Hannah thought, feeling a mix of hope and fear. She decided to delve deeper into this new lead, consulting lawyers and adoption record experts. During a dinner, Hannah delicately confronted Danielle. "Danielle, I need to talk about something important," began Hannah with a serious tone. Nervous, Danielle looked at her. "I found something about your past, something that could change everything," Hannah continued, showing the documents she had found. Confused, Danielle began to read. "Do you think I'm your daughter?" asked Danielle incredulously. Hannah nodded, her eyes welling up. "Yes, I think so, but we need more proof," she replied, determined. The detective then revealed an old photo of Hannah's daughter, showing the same star-shaped birthmark. "The resemblance is undeniable," said the detective. Shocked and emotional, Danielle shared more about her past. "I remember a man who came to visit me at the orphanage," began Danielle. "He said I had family, but he never came back." Hannah held Danielle's hand, feeling the pain her possible daughter had endured. Each discovery brought the two closer together, increasing Hannah's empathy for Danielle. "Let's continue this investigation together," said Hannah firmly. Danielle, her eyes filled with tears, agreed. "Thank you, Hannah," she said, feeling a deep and inexplicable connection. In the luxurious event hall, preparations were in full swing for the grand charity event that Hannah Graham organized annually. Among the high society guests, Danielle stood out, not only for her simple beauty, but for the dedication with which she helped with the final details of the organization. "Danielle, could you adjust the flowers on the main table?" asked Sarah, trying to hide her anxiety with a smile. With the same calm and efficiency she always demonstrated, Danielle replied, "Of course, Sarah, leave it to me." The young woman approached the table and began rearranging the flowers with precision. Hannah watched everything from a distance, her eyes fixed on Danielle. The possibility that Danielle might be her lost daughter still disturbed her, but there was something more, a growing feeling of hope. "Hannah, would you like to review the speech before the event starts?" asked Matthew, trying to sound professional. Distracted, Hannah replied, "Yes, Matthew, please. But first, I need to talk to Danielle." She walked over to Danielle, who had just finished the flower arrangement. "Danielle, may I speak with you for a moment?" said Hannah, trying to keep her voice neutral. Surprised, Danielle nodded affirmatively. "Of course, Mrs. Graham." They moved away from the other employees and guests, finding a quieter corner. "Danielle, I know we've already talked about the possibility that you might be my daughter," began Hannah, her voice choked with emotion. "I've decided that we need to do a DNA test to be sure." Danielle, although surprised, had expected this and slowly nodded. I was expecting this to happen. Of course, I'll take the test." Hannah smiled, relieved. "Thank you, Danielle. This means a lot to me." With the agreement in place, arrangements for the DNA sample collection were quickly organized. Hannah felt a mix of anxiety and hope as she awaited the results. Amid the tension, the charity event began. Danielle, determined to prove her worth, took charge of the final details. The guests were impressed with the impeccable organization and the charm of the young coordinator. "Who is that charming young lady?" commented a high society lady to Hannah, discreetly pointing to Danielle. With a proud smile, Hannah responded, "That's Danielle, one of the most dedicated employees we've ever had." Danielle heard the compliment and smiled shyly, feeling a warm flush in her chest. The recognition from Hannah meant a lot to her. As the evening progressed, Hannah could not take her eyes off Danielle. She observed every movement, every gesture, trying to find familiar traits. When the night came to an end, the guests applauded the impeccable organization and praised the young coordinator. "Danielle, you did an incredible job today," said Hannah at the end of the event. "I am very proud of you." Danielle, her eyes sparkling with emotion, replied, "Thank you, Mrs. Graham. This means a lot to me." Both knew that this charity event was just the beginning of a new journey. The result of the DNA test was eagerly awaited, and as they waited, the bond between them only strengthened. The sun shone through the mansion's windows, casting soft shadows on the tense faces of Hannah and Danielle. The DNA test results lay on the table, still sealed. The silence in the room was palpable, each second heightening the anxiety. With trembling hands, Hannah picked up the envelope and looked at Danielle, who gave her an encouraging smile. Danielle, trying to control her breathing, watched intently. "This is the moment that could change our lives forever," Hannah said, her voice choked with emotion. She tore open the envelope, and as she read the results, tears began streaming down her face. "It's true, Danielle, you are my daughter." Feeling a mix of relief and joy, Danielle rushed to embrace Hannah. "I always knew there was something special about you," said Hannah, moved. "This birthmark is a miracle." Danielle, hugging Hannah again, whispered, "I never imagined I would find my real family." Hannah, wiping away tears, looked deeply into Danielle's eyes. "I've lost so much time, years searching for you, and now, finally, you are here." Danielle, with tears in her eyes, responded, "I also felt something was missing in my life, and now I know what it was. I have finally found my mother." After the initial shock, they sat down to discuss the future. "We need to integrate you into the company," said Hannah, looking firmly at Danielle. "You deserve to know everything about our life and business." Surprised, Danielle asked, "You really want me to work with you?" "I only know how to clean." Hannah smiled. "Don't worry, I'll teach you everything you need to know." "But what about the other employees? And Matthew?" asked Danielle, a shadow of concern in her eyes. "We'll handle this together," said Hannah, determined. "You are my daughter, and no one will separate us again." Danielle, with a glint of hope in her eyes, said, "I'm ready to face anything as long as I have you by my side." Hannah, embracing Danielle again, replied, "And you always will." The afternoon turned into evening as they continued planning Danielle's integration into the company and how to communicate the news to others. Hannah's decision was unanimous. The most important thing was to protect Danielle and ensure she felt safe and loved. "We'll announce this at the family meeting at the end of the week," said Hannah. "It will be a new phase for all of us." Danielle, moved and anxious about what lay ahead, knew her life would change drastically, but she was ready to face the new challenges with the support of her newly discovered mother. "I never imagined my life would take this turn," said Danielle thoughtfully, "but I'm ready for whatever comes." Hannah, holding Danielle's hands, responded, "Me too. Together we'll face everything. This is just the beginning of a new journey for us both." Danielle felt the weight of responsibility as she entered the luxurious office of Graham Enterprises. Her new life was just beginning, and the challenges were many. Beside Hannah, she began to understand the complexity of the family business, absorbing every detail with determination. "Danielle, this is the quarterly balance sheet. It's important that you understand every line," said Hannah with an encouraging smile. "I will learn, Mom," responded Danielle, feeling a mix of anxiety and gratitude. Hannah's support was constant, but not everything was easy. Matthew, watching from afar, felt his resentment grow each day. He couldn't accept Danielle's presence in the company and began to conspire against her, sowing doubts and misinformation among the employees. "Do you think Danielle is really prepared for this position?" Matthew insinuated, always with a tone of false concern. The challenges didn't stop there. One evening at dinner with Hannah, Danielle decided to open up about her past in the orphanage. "You know, the time I spent in the orphanage was terrible," she began, her voice trembling. Hannah encouraged her to continue. "There was a caretaker, Mr. Collins. He was cruel. One day he locked one of us in a dark room for hours just because we spilled a little milk," said Danielle, tears beginning to fall. Hannah pulled her into a tight embrace. "That will never happen again. I'm here for you." This moment of vulnerability strengthened the bond between them. Hannah, with tears in her eyes, added, "You are strong, Danielle. I'm proud of you." However, Matthew's conspiracy began to show its claws. He manipulated documents and made small errors appear to be Danielle's fault, hoping to discredit her. But the young woman, now stronger and more determined, was not easily daunted. "I know what's going on, Matthew," said Danielle, facing him directly. "I know you're trying to hurt me." Matthew, surprised by her courage, responded with disdain. "You don't belong here, Danielle. I belong here as much as you do, and I'm going to prove it," she replied firmly. The tension was palpable, but Danielle knew she had Hannah's support, and with that, nothing could stop her from adjusting to her new life and claiming her place at Graham Enterprises. Matthew watched Danielle with disdain as she adjusted to the new corporate environment. He couldn't bear the thought of a simple housekeeper being promoted to an important position within the company. Determined to do something about it, he began to spread rumors and false information about Danielle's performance, hoping to undermine her credibility and confidence. "Have you heard about Danielle?" Matthew murmured to a colleague, a malicious smile forming on his lips. "It seems she's not handling the responsibilities of the position. Too much for a housekeeper, don't you think?" The rumors began to circulate around the company, and Danielle soon realized something was amiss. Important documents were disappearing from her desk. Crucial emails never reached their recipients. She felt the weight of her colleagues' distrust and knew she needed to act quickly. One afternoon, Danielle headed to Matthew's office, determined to confront him. "Matthew, we need to talk," she said, her voice firm despite her nervousness. Matthew looked up from his desk, feigning surprise. "What is it now, Danielle? I'm very busy." "I know what you're doing," Danielle asserted, her eyes shining with determination. "You're sabotaging my work and spreading lies about me. Why are you doing this?" Matthew smiled arrogantly, crossing his arms. "Do you really think anyone will believe you? You're just a lucky housekeeper. This place isn't for you." Danielle felt anger boiling inside her, but before she could respond, Hannah entered the room, having heard the conversation. "Matthew, what's going on here?" she asked, her voice cold and authoritative. Matthew, trying to mask his nervousness, replied, "Just a minor disagreement, Mrs. Graham. Nothing to worry about." However, Hannah was already aware of Matthew's manipulations. She had discreetly investigated and discovered his attempts to sabotage Danielle. "That's not true, Matthew," she said, staring at him with disdain. "You've done much more than just create disagreements. You're fired." Matthew tried to protest, but Hannah was unyielding. "I trusted you, and you betrayed that trust." leave the company immediately. With Matthew out of the way, Danielle felt a huge weight lifted from her shoulders. She knew there were still challenges ahead, but Hannah's intervention gave her a new sense of confidence. "Thank you for believing in me," said Danielle, her voice full of gratitude. Hannah smiled warmly. "You deserve this chance, Danielle. Keep up the excellent work." Danielle began her day with firm, confident steps as always, but now there was a noticeable difference. She felt at home. The company, once a hostile territory, was now an environment where she stood out. Colleagues who had once looked at her with suspicion now viewed her with respect and admiration. The office, once so impersonal, was now a vibrant space filled with positive energy. During a team meeting, one of the managers said, "Danielle, your ideas for the new project are simply brilliant. We're all excited to see this become a reality." Danielle smiled, thanking everyone for their support. It was a new beginning, and she was determined to make a difference. At home, Hannah organized a celebration in honor of Danielle's success. The living room was decorated with flowers and soft lights. Creating a welcoming atmosphere, Hannah, with a proud smile, announced, "Today, we celebrate not only Danielle's professional success, but also the renewed unity of our family." During the celebration, Danielle approached Hannah and said, "I couldn't have done it without your support. Thank you for believing in me." Hannah, moved, replied, "You are a part of me, Danielle. I always knew there was something special about you." Later in the mansion's garden, Danielle and Hannah shared a moment of tranquility. The sky was clear and the scent of flowers filled the air. Sitting on a bench, Hannah looked at Danielle and said, "This garden has always been a place of peace for me. I hope it is the same for you." Danielle, holding Hannah's hand, replied, "It is. And more than that, it's a symbol of hope and new beginnings." Together, they looked out at the horizon, feeling the gentle breeze and listening to the birds' song. It was a new chapter in their lives, full of promises and possibilities. And at that moment, both knew that, regardless of future challenges, they would be ready to face them together with strength and unity. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and share with your friends. Leave a comment below telling us what moved you most about Danielle's journey. See you in the next chapter.